I'm calling this meeting to order. It's 5 p.m. Monday, August 12th, 2024. This is the Public Works Committee, and first item I'm going to call roll for this evening. And I'll call the council members first. Mike Kennedy.
Here.
And Sarah Brook.
Here.
Okay, we have both of our alderpersons here representing, and I also am serving as an alderperson. And I'd also like to introduce our staff that's present with us this evening. To my right is the Public Works and Parks Director, Mike Mraz, and I see a spot for his assistant, but maybe Deb's not here tonight. But also to my left is Aaron McPhee Anderson, who is the Hudson City Engineer. And we also have our City Administrator sitting in this evening, Brent McCulloch. It's the first time I've said that on a microphone, so hopefully I said it right.
Very close.
Close, okay, we'll have to work on it. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for everyone for being here this evening. First item is discussion, comments, or approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Motion and second to minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign, minutes are accepted. Okay, I thought I had my phone turned off, sorry guys. All right, next item, we usually provide an opportunity for citizens present to make any comments or suggestions to our committee, and no one is present tonight, so we'll move on from that item. We are expecting a speaker, our consultant from Cedar Corporation, to join us this evening. So we're going to go ahead with our new business. In the meantime, we may interject so he doesn't have to sit through all of our business meeting once he's ready for us. We're going to get a report this evening, but under new business, we're going to review the proposed 2025 Public Works operating budget.
All right, I'll take it from here. So in your packet is the preliminary budget that I put together for the Public Works Department. This is operational budget for a lot of the services that we provide. Also included are like City Hall, shade tree, street maintenance, you name it. So what I'm going to do is I'll just kind of go over both the Public Works and then the next agenda item, which is a stormwater utility, give kind of a 30,000 foot overview, and then I will answer any questions that you might have. Obviously, you'll be discussing this at both Finance and Common Council over the next few months. But before we get to that point, I just kind of want to give you an idea of what we're looking at for the Public Works Committee budget, or for the Public Works budget. So I guess the good news, and obviously to start out, and I put in the issue sheet, is none of these budgets that I'm presenting tonight have any of the salary or healthcare in there, just because we're still waiting on some of those numbers, with Brent being new and new kind of interim finance director, kind of playing catch up on that end. So just so you're aware and the public's aware that none of those numbers are included. So that might make things a little dicey once we get those numbers back, but we'll make those adjustments when necessary. So the good news, what I'll start off with is kind of the last page of the budget. So if you total all of our operational expenses for this year's budget in 2024, it was $730,500. So the proposed budget that I am presenting to this committee, to Finance and to Common Council, is at $727,300. So 4.3% reduction. So that's good, right? We're able to kind of meet the needs of the community while keeping the budget pretty much net zero. So what I'll do is, obviously in your spreadsheet, I kind of color coded it. Red is for items that I increased. Green is for items that I reduced. Obviously, as you're looking through, a lot of it is just minor adjustments, $500 here, $1,000 there, kind of offsetting each other based on expenses that we're seeing in 2024 and in 2023. So with that being said, I do have my viewpoint open, which basically is real-time expenditures. If you do have questions on a certain account, I can look at what we typically put to that account. So obviously, City Hall is pretty self-explanatory. Nothing really changing there. So as you go through to, let's see, the Public Works Administration, pretty much the only thing that I reduced was memberships and subscriptions, travel and conferences. Zeroed that out. Definitely not traveling. Even if I wanted to travel, I got family at home. I got 4 kids. I can't travel if I wanted to some of these conferences because they always got something going on. So, took that out this year. As you continue on to machinery and equipment, nothing changed from this year. Obviously, when we get down to the east storage shed in the garage, whether it's the east garage and the west garage, obviously there's going to be changes happening over the next year or two. We're not going to be into the new public works facility probably until next June, July. So we're having to keep those items in our budget just to keep our current facilities operating for at least another year. Then when we get through 2025, we'll have a look at that, and maybe depending upon what this committee and council wants to do, we might be able to offload those facilities and get rid of those budgets. So obviously more of the same, just kind of reflecting the previous year's expenses. Reduced gas by $1,000, increased fuel expenses by $1,000. Janitorial supplies backed off a couple, $250, increased uniform allowance by $1,000. So it kind of is all netting out to be a net zero increase. Any questions before I continue to mumble? Okay, so when we go on to the street maintenance,
I do have just a question as it relates to the machinery and equipment. So I noticed that there was no expenditure for vehicles, so you're not anticipating needing to purchase any vehicles this upcoming year? Am I reading that correctly?
So any large vehicle purchase that we've done is typically run through the bonds, through the CIP.
Okay,
Yep.
but how about your routine vehicles that you purchase? That would
Correct.
be on here.
That would not be on here.
That would go through the bonds.
That would go through the CIP.
Like
Yep.
the pickup trucks and
Yep,
stuff.
pickup trucks, plow trucks, that's just going to be a whole separate
So we wouldn't see
discussion.
that on here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And when it says supplies for vehicles, that's like 15,000, just about what is that?
Yep.
New tires, what kinds of things?
Supplies, what number is it?
Okay, 140-53240352. That's something, it looks like it's
That's
on,
perfect.
is that?
Yeah, so let me do that real quick.
Okay. On the budget, it's the.
Yep, I got her.
Perfect.
All right, so those are items like car parts, tires, windshield wipers,
Just random.
random items to keep the equipment up and running. Yeah, tires are a large expense in that line item just because of the cost of tires nowadays. So, yeah.
Thank you. That
Yep.
addresses the
So-
questions I had.
Excuse me. And that's over how many trucks? I mean, that's actually a pretty conservative number if we're running
Yep, so we
10
have.
pickup trucks, 20? I don't know.
No. So we have 9 plow trucks, 2 wheel loaders. We got, as far as pickups are concerned, we're running, it's probably say 16 pickup
Okay.
trucks. So yeah, it's a pretty reasonable number. In fact, so for this year, we are at approximately $9,000 year to date of our $15,000 budget. So gives you an idea.
Well, and you're doing those projects in-house. I mean, that's your
Correct.
crew can
Yep.
handle those replacements so that you
Yeah.
buy it at cost or a better
Absolutely. Yep.
purchase. That's helpful.
Our mechanic does as much as the work as possible, obviously, to save the city money.
I have one quick
Yeah.
question too. So, either under number, it's under the city hall,
Yeah.
other professional services of 25,000.
Oh, yeah.
Is that physical, services or is that staffing or how?
Nope, so that's physical services. So that are items like elevator inspections, sprinkler inspections, fire extinguisher inspections, rodent control, the alarm system,
Okay.
that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
All right. No, good questions. Snow and ice removal. Let's just go to street maintenance. So the big item there is the ice control chemicals. So we got the pricing back for the salt. Obviously, it did go up a couple bucks per ton. However, because we were able to kind of fill our our bin is full after last season, right? Just because we didn't use a lot of it. I was able to kind of reduce the amount that we had to purchase for this year. And so we were able to actually save some money based on our previous year's budget by $5,000. I was able to reduce that just because we're not going to have to buy as much because we're already fully stocked. So.
And the Farmer's Almanac says it's going to be a bad winter.
Is that what it says?
Yes. Are you prepared?
What did it say? What did it say last summer or last winter?
It did. It didn't. It said it was supposed to be more mild last.
No
last year.
kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Well,
stay
I
tuned.
trust those.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Lots of snow. It says.
Yeah. So as we continue through to street lighting, public works street lighting, this is a large increase. So I'll actually bring this up and kind of just let you know where we're at year to date on that account. It's going to be the 53420. 5320-222. Thank you. So halfway through the season, so this is our utilities electric. This is for all of our street lights.
Okay.
Okay. So obviously, as we continue to grow, add more street lights to the grid, we got to pay for them, and the cost of utilities, just like at your home, is going up for us as well at the city. So we are at approximately $77,000 halfway through the season. So and the utility costs are actually pretty easy to expand out just because 6 months pretty much slicks it in half, times it by 2, so it kind of gives you in the ballpark range of what we would need to cover those expenses. So that was probably the largest increase in the budget this year, was just to cover the cost of the electric to keep our streetlights on. And this is after, obviously, before I got here, Tom Zulli kind of swapped out all of our streetlights to LED. So we're kind of ahead of the curve on that one. Even still, it just kind of goes to show you how much money we spend on street lighting. Let's see here. Stop and go lights, pretty standard. The other item that I really wanted to point out was under the shade tree. It's going to be on your last page. So the emerald ash borer line item in the shade tree control. So in 2024, we had $20,000 allocated to that. So as you'll see, I basically pulled that full $20,000 from the operating budget with my intent that we would bond a large sum of money to just have a contractor come and subsidize our removals and just do a full-scale removal. So, and I'm estimating that to be about $250,000 based on what we have remaining in our boulevards and parks. So we have
That's removal only, not
removal
replace.
only.
Yeah.
Yeah, removal only. Yep. So we have approximately 350 to go yet. $1,000 per tree is what I kind of guesstimate. Obviously, the ones that we would have them target are the larger ones in the historical part of town, just because you're getting 30, 35-inch DBH up to 40-inch DBH ash trees. And so that gets to be a little above and beyond what my staff is comfortable handling. So that's what I'm going to propose. Obviously, we'll have to kind of talk through that with the CIP. If that line item, or if that doesn't go through, then obviously we're going to have to dump some money back into this budget for that, because as you just drive around the community, it's here and it's fast now. So the trees are dying faster than our staff can take them down. So just unfortunate that we're at that point in the community. Luckily, we've done a lot of work over the last eight years to get to this point. We started out with about 1,400. If we didn't do anything for the last 8 years, that would have been,
Disaster.
$1.5 million. So we were able to take baby steps and kind of get it down to a more manageable dollar, right, for the community to come in and take them down. So,
Sure.
And your estimate of removals, when you say removal, mean removing the stump too, stump grinding?
nope, that does not include stump grinding.
Okay.
So what I would do then is, if we would bring on a contractor, so we have about 400 stumps to grind right now in the boulevards based on the last two storms that we've had and all the ash tree removals, right? And people are getting a little frustrated. And what I've been telling them is basically, I need to focus my staff on getting the trees on the ground, because those are the higher liability to the city and, just the safety, right? A stump in the front yard is not fun to look at. and, but it can wait for, so yeah, if we bring in a contractor, we might be able to move our staff more towards restoration and planting, which I know has also been a hot topic as well. So just keep that in mind.
I have a question about that and your staffing in general, because I believe you had said, and maybe it was just in conversation, before that sometimes you have the seasonal help do some stump grinding.
Yep.
This summer. Have they had time too much, or are they pretty busy with other things?
This summer was not a good summer for stump grinding compared to last year,
Okay.
just based on all the moisture that we had. I mean, they continued to mow and weed whip basically up to the end of July. So actually last week, the seasonal help started, Gail, our urban forestry lead, help stump grinding some of the stumps in the parks that you've seen. So we're gonna try to utilize them over the last couple of weeks here while we still have them in-house to get as many as we can done. But last year we were stump grinding by the end of June, So it's about a month later this year. So yeah, we're
Okay,
slowly
just
ticking away.
curious.
Yep.
Well, and that ties into maybe you
Yeah.
have more comments. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the funding for maintaining the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, you have line items here for mowing, but of course no salaries, but you use a lot of seasonal people for
Yep.
the mowing, and that's in the parks.
Yep.
How much else time? I just think of our parks as being such a big asset to the city, people stopping in, visiting for the weekend. Lakefront Park serves as an event center for much of the season. And I know it takes a lot of time and energy for your staff. Do you find that you're pulling staff in? Do the seasonal people help with the setups and the barricades and the things that need to go on there?
Seasonals will help. They're more doing rounds, checking on restrooms, power washing the pavilions. So I just kind of did a rough estimate at Lakefront Park. So throughout the entire, from basically February through, Deb puts this together, through December, we'll have about 26 different events. So basically one every other week where we're helping set up, whether that's barricades, blocking off streets, cones, no parking signs, that type of stuff, fencing, locating all of the irrigation systems, electrical systems in the park, because we have a lot of events that come and put a fence, so you got to make sure that they're not going to go through our irrigation. They do happen to do that from time to time, and so then we're tasked with trying to follow through with repairs. So
Do they can pay for the repair?
Yep, they pay, yep. All the, if they break it, they buy it. So, but it's just, one of those things where you have to constantly kind of follow up with them and make sure they get it repaired, and then the system's
Sure.
down for a couple weeks before it, so it gets to be quite a lot, and that's just Lakefront Park, you have Prospect, Grandview, White Camp, same things out there. A little less, but we're still, cleaning the pavilions and making sure that everything is in order for when people come to rent it, that they're getting a good quality product, because they pay a good fair money for it, so.
Sure, and they're reserving those pavilions, and of course, would expect them to be clean and
Yep.
trash out and things like that, hopefully.
Exactly.
Be satisfied with that. People have family events, weddings are held at some of our parks. Do we have any different charging structure for Hudson residents versus none? or-
Yep. So it's city Hudson residents get a $100 break versus outside of the city limit residents.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So I know recently there was I don't know how many of you saw it downtown, there was an international event held out in the township, actually. It was I always say this wrong, it was some kind of a competitive shooting, trap shooting or
Yep,
something.
Yep.
And they had a big awards program with tents and so on. Lakefront Park again became kind of an event center to host them, and an international competition was being held here. And I heard it went really great. They were really happy, weather was perfect, Hudson was looking good. I just think, I don't know how your staff manages that. They have to, when it's an event, it happens on a weekend, people have to jump in and
Right.
focus on that. So it might have been the perfect day for stump grinding,
Yeah.
but we've got to
Yeah.
focus on that. So I think, I know you work that out in your staffing and your
Scheduling.
yes, Kevin Soltis
Yep,
handles
Kevin,
those
yep,
crews of who goes where, but
And
it's
some
challenging.
of our larger events like Booster Days, we'll have 4 or 5 different people on throughout the entire weekend, right?
Yeah.
And then we're bringing in full timers to sweep downtown to make sure that it's upkept, and so it gets to be a lot of time and
as the law.
resources for
And
those
it's
events.
important. I mean, I think it's important. I just kind of want to recognize the work that goes into that and be certain that we're supporting with the staff and so on. Is any just something that's been on my mind recently, how important, certainly Lakefront Park is a huge attraction for people.
Absolutely.
Any other comments that you wanted to fill in?
Well, I guess
Mike,
while Brent
or
is
else-
here, do you have an update on when the like health insurance and all that stuff is going to be?
Right now, we factored in 10%. It should be lower than that, but we won't have that until probably about mid to late September.
Okay.
So that'll be kind of a late add-in, but we have factored that in for the cost of the employees.
Yep.
A couple other things for, factored in for the employee costs, all of their steps, and/or there'll be an option for COLA adjustment along with the steps. COLA for the metro area is at about 2.6%. And I guess this year's kind of a good year that we're, good year from a city perspective, budget-wise, that we're in the Minneapolis, St. Paul region, because the COLA for like Green Bay is at like 2.8%. Chicago area is at about 2.8 as well. We just seem to fit this area of the upper Midwest was at much lower than the other areas that I've looked at. So 2.6% will be the probably recommended COLA if the council wishes to go forward with that as well. So there'll be an option to do that within the budget. So that's what we're looking at. We
Mid
pretty
to late
much have,
September, okay.
Robin's, our finance person, is sending me those final numbers tomorrow with those adjustments in it. And then there'll be some other things we have to talk about with some other departments. But that's what I'm expecting. So picture whatever it was last year, your salary increase will increase 2% and then 2.6 COLA on top of that. If, again, you want to do, the council wants to do all of those pieces.
Okay. So that's all I have for the public works budget. Any questions before I move on to storm?
No, thank you.
No,
We aren't
good.
taking a vote, just advisory, thank you.
No, yeah, just more of
Appreciate heads up, thanks for sharpening your pencil. It's challenging, isn't it?
Yep. All right, stormwater. So the stormwater utility, obviously, this is a budget that is strictly used for all of our stormwater-related programming and projects here in the city. This budget is funded through a stormwater utility charge on everybody's utility bill. So every quarter, when you get your bill, there will be a charge on there for stormwater. And those funds that are collected go into this utility budget, which we use for street sweeping, all the stormwater systems, the MS4 programming, so on and so forth. So the first kind of part of the budget is our expected revenue versus from 2024 to 2025. So based on some of the new businesses that came in that we're going to start collecting money on, obviously commercial properties are charged more RUs because they have more impervious surface, which means they're directing more stormwater into the system, which we have to maintain. So we're expected to see, an approximately $24,000 bump. So our expected revenues are going to be $563,500 for 2025. The big items in this budget. So when I'm filling this budget out, I try to spend as much in the expenses that I'm collecting. So to try to keep, what do you want to say, keep it close to net zero as possible, revenues versus expenses. Sure. Obviously, there are larger purchases kind of coming our way in the next few years in the CIP. Street sweeper, we got to replace the track skid steer probably in the next 4 years. So those are large items that we're going to be taking out of the stormwater utility budget. So our current cash balance, did I put that in the issue sheet or not?
No.
Okay.
I think it was.
It's just a shade over. That's like $311,000 is our current cash balance in that account. So obviously that money is used to help fund larger purchases. So when I put this budget together, obviously I was pretty conservative, or not conservative, but I kind of lessened my expenses a little bit just to kind of not dip into that cash reserve, because I know that we're going to have large equipment purchases coming up. So if you look at the last sheet, it was a 3.4% decrease from 2024 to 2025. So 2024 was $282,850, and my proposed 2025 budget is $273,200. A large portion of that reduction was out of the other capital improvements under collection systems. It's on page 2. This is our large kind of capital outlay budget line item that I pull from. And this is typically, I use this budget to pay for any system upgrades, any failures in the system, and also pond restorations. So you can see I reduced that by $30,000, so I'll kind of cut back on that because there's some other items in here that I increased, including, if you go up just a couple line items, equipment lease, I have $10,000 in there, where I didn't have anything in 2024, excuse me. And the reason being is I am going to look at leasing a street sweeper for 1 month during the month of October to help assist with leaf collection, just because we get behind in our leaf cleanup. Luckily last year we were able to kind of get through the entire city just because of the winter that we had. But there's been other times where, it's snowing late October and early November and we can't get the entire city swept in that short amount of time. So looking to bring in another unit for a month. It's a lease program through a supplier out in the cities. It's $10,000. I have personnel that would run it for that month and assist with leaf collection. The other large kind of increases are 5 or 6 line items up above that, just other operating supplies for collection system maintenance. So that's things like pipe, catch basins, manhole covers, castings, that type of things, where we do it in-house. So I don't know if you know this, but Chad Christensen is our stormwater inspector. He does a lot of the pond inspections, site inspections for our festival foods or anything over 1 acre. He has to go out and inspect, make sure they're following their erosion control plan. But he also is very talented in replacing stormwater structures. So a lot of the small catch basin replacements or pipe replacements, we're able to do them in-house, which saves us money and kind of makes our dollars go farther. So it's a very, very good person to have on staff. And then the other contractual services, I bumped that up $13,000. So this is, we started to, we're putting together the final touches on the kind of that stormwater GIS tracking system through WSB. So they came in, they're gonna be coming in probably sometime next year and doing 10 different inspections on our ponds, but then we'll also do kind of 5 more every year. Remember this conversation, it's gonna all go into a database, and then we can kind of play, we can see which pond gets us the best bang for the buck, so on and so forth. So there are some ongoing costs associated with that program, including some of the licensing and the cloud data and all that jazz. So had to increase that one as well. Everything else is pretty much,
So
similar.
can I ask you a question about that? So I do remember that discussion that we voted to approve with that, go ahead with that program because it seemed very beneficial. Does all of the funding for it come from the stormwater, or does?
Yep.
That's kind of interesting to separate out here because we have a street sweeper under Public Works
Yep.
operated, but
Yep.
we can charge this to the stormwater utility.
Correct.
Because it's directly benefiting,
Yes, the stormwater related.
protecting our flow.
Yep. So if you go back to the public works budget, so like the street sweeping line items, the storm sewer line items, those are all zeroed out. And that'll be a conversation that we have with the incoming finance director to just get them out of that budget, because we do have a budget dedicated for
Sure.
stormwater. So, but yeah, anything related with, jetting our stormwater systems, with any type of educational material, street sweeping, that's all can come out of this budget here. Yep. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's kind of the gist of the budget. If you have any questions or anything, you can always ask me later, but, yeah, it's kind of my thought process moving forward for upcoming budget, 2025. The other thing I will add to the stormwater budget is I am having Trilogy do a rate study. The last time we not saying that we're going to increase them or do anything with them, but I just kind of want to know based on our upcoming expenditures, kind of what we're charging right now. When does it make sense? Does it make sense to increase a rate? So they are putting together a rate study for the stormwater utility. The last time we raised it was in 2018 when I first got here. So it's been, 6 years since we've done that. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know.
So you've already requested that
Yep.
evaluation?
Yep, I requested that.
I don't know how the other council members feel, but I think gradual occasional changes are probably more accepted by the public than a big jump.
Right.
But people also don't want to see, oh, it's going up every year, but it'll be
Right.
interesting. I think it's valid, especially with the
Oh,
equipment.
yeah.
Absolutely, with equipment purchases coming down the pike.
Well, it's fairly nominal, I mean, to the average homeowner, as far as when
Right.
your expenses every month, as you're writing your checks at the kitchen table, it's fairly nominal.
Yeah.
And then we also have this issue that, a storm pond used to just be some pond, with a couple of ducks in it. Now it's actually a living thing that's functioning for the city. And as Mike said, as we're trying to get more aggressive and keep those ponds healthier and doing what they're supposed to do, that money's gotta come from somewhere, so.
Right.
So I'm assuming with that study that you're doing, Mike, that'll kinda,
Yeah, it would lay.
how much more aggressive can we get with that schedule if it's, another $5 per household or something like that?
And is there a time frame when you would have to ask for a rate increase if that seemed needed?
It would go through, basically, we would, I anticipate the study coming back within the next couple of months in time to have a conversation later on this fall or early winter
Okay.
that we could tie to whenever we do the fee schedule. So right now, every quarter, it's a $12 charge to a house, a single family home. I don't anticipate anything large, I wouldn't want to do any large increases, maybe $1 or $2, just to,
Okay.
nothing where we're going to jump at like $10, $15 a month. No,
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Right.
So,
So you do have a plan to tie it in? I just wondered.
Yes.
You're not required by law, it doesn't have to be tied to our budget or our
right,
CIP.
it would be, yeah. So I think when we did this change back in 2018, it was a standalone kind of increase that was approved
Okay.
by a resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would want to tie it together with our fee schedule, so I just kind of do it all at once, if we do anything.
If it seems appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments there? Thank you. Okay, again, no action taken tonight. Should we sidestep to?
Yeah, we can do
if you
that.
don't mind, we're going to ask our guest presenter here, represented from Cedar Corporation, who's been working on the architectural design for the Public Works building, the new Public Works facility. So we'd like to welcome you to our meeting tonight. Thanks for being here.
You bet. Thank you very much for inviting me. Just to kind of give you guys an update on the Public Works facility. Excuse me. But basically, we kind of put together some schematic plans, and we're putting together some numbers along with the city's construction manager, Kraus Anderson. So we met with them, talked through a few different things. Right now, the way that the budget is kind of, or the numbers are kind of looking, it's looking to be quite a bit more than what we had budgeted for initially. However, there are a lot of optional items, I will say, that we can kind of work around and kind of massage those numbers to a little bit more of a palatable number for the budget.
So this is Christopher Dressler with Cedar Corp.
I just got so excited.
That's fine. And Chris is obviously here to kind of talk through what we've done to date, kind of the schedule moving forward. In front of you, I did print out some of the schematics that Cedar Corp has put together. It's the stapled sheet in front of you. That kind of goes through kind of the layout of the site, some of the improvements to the restroom area, how those are going to be laid out to make them functional for the city and the current tenant. It has some layouts of the salt storage facility, including, the size of it, the cold storage that's attached to it, some of the material bunkers and the brine room. And then the other sheet of paper that has kind of the, mauve layout is, those are numbers that we just got back from Kraus Anderson, this sheet here. So I got these back late last week, and Cedar Corp has these as well. So these are numbers. So basically what happened is, we had discussions with Cedar Corp and staff, kind of what we're looking to do at that facility to make it operational for our department. Put together the design, put together the specs. Specs went to Kraus Anderson. Kraus Anderson looked at them and they put numbers to it. Okay. And so these are the numbers that we got back from Kraus Anderson that kind of gives an estimate of what we can expect to pay when we bid this project out. Okay. So like Chris said, obviously when we go through these numbers, this is the first swing at it, and it is over our budget. So our budget is 3.7 million. Okay. If you look down at the very bottom, the numbers that they're putting together, and this includes all of the architectural costs, the construction management costs, this is the cost for the new buildings, so on and so forth. So you're coming in at about 5.7, so about $2 million over budget. All right. Now, having said that, there are some items within this budget, and I'll just point out one of them right off the get-go is they're putting in $500,000 for a generator, right? Would be great, yeah, obviously, would be nice to have a generator for when power goes out, but that's something that maybe we can live without for the first, several years and do it at a different time, So there are some things, like you said, that we can look into, obviously, maybe some of the building materials or maybe just the practices in general that we can look at and try to get that number down to a more palatable total that fits within our budget. So I know Chris did mention earlier today when I was out talking on the phone with him that now that we kind of have these numbers together, we do want to sit down and kind of just talk through them, maybe omit some of the things like maybe some of the fencing or security gates, just what can we do to get that, pick away at it and get it close. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that really provides a lot of detail here, and there's even more detail that goes into each one of these line items as well. Kraus Anderson does a phenomenal job of putting together all these details and going through it with us. And like Mike said, we will be meeting with staff to kind of go through each one of these and talk through some of these options and how we can bring this number a little bit closer to budget.
So I'll just give an example. So this here, this is I didn't print this out for the committee members, but this is kind of the breakdown of these large numbers. So for example, when we're looking at, the existing building conditions, they break it down into the light renovations, they break it down into foundational repair, earthwork, and they give kind of an estimated cost based on, square footage or linear footage of what they've been seeing out in the field for bidding. So it kind of gives a more detailed response than what you have in front of you. So this is the document that I would assume we would be going through when we do meet with Kraus Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so so like Mike said, this has contingency built in. This has all your general conditions, overhead and profits for the contractors and everything. All the fees and permit fees and different things like that. So this is very much all encompassing for your total project. But as we kind of go through some of these, we talked through a few different items. As Mike mentioned, the emergency generator, those items can definitely be looked at. We kind of looked at it as, this is what it could handle, and so this is the number that we started with. So we could look at something a little bit smaller, There's some additional things that would have to happen with that in order to make that, that whole system work appropriately. Those are some of the fine details that we still need to kind of work through, but yeah, then we have trench drains figured in for the existing facility, so then that way, as the staff brings in their equipment, it'll melt away and move away. One option that we looked at is, well, could we minimize that a little bit more, and then it might require, you know, a little bit more of pushing some water throughout the winter season, but that's all items that we'll kind of go through with the staff to make sure that staff is getting the appropriate facilities for the work that they're doing, with keeping that budget in mind. So without kind of going into too much detail, that's a lot of what we've been looking at and what we're putting together and everything. So what we'll plan on doing here is hopefully this week here yet, we can meet with staff and kind of go through some of these numbers in a little bit more detail, and start developing the different options to make it to get us back into that budget amount and everything. So then that way we kind of have a clear picture going forward, and then we'd be looking at probably, you know, closer to end of September, having bid documents all put together and ready to go, and then Kraus Anderson will go through their bidding process and everything, and get all the numbers put together for that, and then we can really see where those numbers end up.
Just one thing to add to the committee. So the $3.7 million number that we had budgeted, so that number came from Market & Johnson when we first did the assessment during the due diligence process, right? We kind of had them come in and say, okay, these are the items that we want to do, right? Fuel island, salt storage, all the pavement, some restroom upgrades. And they gave a high level, okay, you're going to be around, you know, $3.7 million to renovate this facility. So that's where we got that 3.7 from. So we're not just kind of picking it out of thin air. We actually had someone come in and do it. So during that discussion when we acquired the facility, there's some things that we need to do based on some of the covenants that, you know, made some of the numbers a little, what do you want to say?
Fuzzy?
There you go. So a little more than what we had anticipated, which is why we're seeing the larger sum. So we're able, I think by like, you know, when they first did Market & Johnson, they had, you know, a $225,000 for an office remodel. The guys are fine, we'll put some paint on it, right? We can put that $225,000 towards the salt shed and the things that we need to have to be operational on that site. So, like I said, as we kind of work through over the numbers the next couple of weeks, we'll try to pare this down as best we can, and then do we come back to, is that typically what you come back to a Public Works Committee for final review before bidding? I would assume we would have to have council approve that to bid.
Yeah. Typically, what we would suggest and typically what we see is that we come back. We would put together these numbers, finalize these numbers. You know, if they're still, you know, a little bit further than where we would like to be, you know, we would definitely come back to the committee and council to discuss, you know, how we've come to where we're at and how we're not able to, or if we're not able to bring it into that budget number.
Right.
Excuse me. So basically, once we kind of have these schematic design numbers put together, you know, if it comes in within budget, we will move forward with design, and then come towards the end of September here, we'll have all the bid documents pulled together, and we'll come back to committee and council to make sure everybody's good with the design that we've brought forward.
Could I ask you a question? Thank you for reminding me that it was Market and Johnson, the firm that we asked to look at the building, evaluate it for some structural integrity and usefulness for our needs. In your work now, you've had a little longer time, though perhaps you approach it differently. You're designing, you're trying to work a public facility. I know experience with municipal buildings. Have you seen anything structurally now that there's more time to evaluate it that you're concerned about? Something that
No.
wasn't evident at the beginning, but with more evaluation you've found? Anything
Yeah.
like that?
No,
Okay.
everything that we've seen, the building is very structurally sound.
Okay.
The systems are getting to their useful life cycle, which, when I say systems, it's the HVAC, the rooftop units, the exhaust fans, some of the electrical items and things like that. Some of those are kind of getting to their useful life expectancy.
They're in the twilight years.
So are we gonna
But
put,
everybody's living longer now, Chris.
That's
So
true,
We
that's
can
true.
limp them by for 10 years.
and is our plan to
That's the
limp?
plan,
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, we-
replace when needed.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that's
Yeah, and
cost effective.
Yeah, and we're looking at, what we would be looking at as part of the project versus future maintenance and everything like that,
Sure.
and things like that. So we're definitely, we're taking all avenues possible to figure out what's gonna be the most cost-effective approach for the city of Hudson to make sure we've got a good functional building at a good price.
So like speaking of trench drains, right? So we talked about trench drains. Maybe it means instead of putting 2 trench drains in the main aisles, maybe you do it only in 1 lane, and that's where you park all of the snowplow equipment, and that's, stuff like that where we can just nickel and dime it, get it down. So that'll be the task.
Sure, as
So-
long as it makes sense.
That-
And that it makes sense and it's functional
Yep.
Absolutely.
to the best, that's certainly our goal. Any other comments from our questions?
I have a couple quick questions. So the salt shed, right now you basically just have a bunker, right, that we dump salt into. Now, and this concept is, it's covered, because does it have to be because of the covenants?
Yep, it has to be covered per the Wisconsin DNR. So our current site is covered, but
It's
it's
covered, okay.
it's in very poor shape. It only
Yeah, yeah.
it only
Oh, no, I'm
holds
not saying- yeah,
it
let's
only
hang on to
holds
it another 10 years.
It only
But-
holds like 400, 500 ton, right? And we've talked about this prior, where if we have back to back to back major snowfalls, we're darn near out of salt. So I don't want to be in a position where we're, as a community, we don't have salt to treat our roads and people are
Absolutely.
slipping and sliding. So that's why the size of the shed is the way it is, so we can get basically a full year's order of salt in there, and then we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about if there's a salt shortage, because we've run into that problem. It's just like early fill, get it in there, done. That's one less thing, one less
Yeah.
headache to worry about.
So I fully respect that, but then when you apply a price to it, that's the one thing that jumps out at me, one of the many things. Actually, to a point where if we're at 1.5 million, I know the whole idea of consolidation to this one location is great, but if we didn't have the covenants and do we have land or one of our existing places that, again, I don't want to spread it out, but just an idea that there's got to be a middle ground there. I think that's an expensive thing, but just, and the other part, like the sign shop, that's a lot of signs, dollar-wise.
Yep.
$500,000. And that's mostly because that's going to go in that empty spot.
Correct.
Would there be any, I assumed cost savings, would there be any wiggle room with our existing tenant in there, rather than build a new roof and insulated heat and all that, to basically just could we sublet from them, if you will? If the long game is we're gonna take over, we're gonna have, I won't say plenty of space, but we'll have more space. Could that could that be cobbled together, maybe borrow some space from our current sublessors, people? And then again, in 5 or 10 years, if we do take over the whole building, that we'll go without that new part. That was just a,
Yeah, it's a good
Thought.
thought. It's a good thought. It's something that we could look into. So the sign shop includes traffic signal repairs, controller cabinet repairs, street lighting that's knocked down, we bring it in and rewire
Okay.
it in-house. That's what that's referring to.
Yeah.
Because right now that takes place over at the west shop. But yeah, I mean, if we're getting down to it, we're trying to find creative ways.
yeah.
Everything's on the table. For sure.
And then my last comment. The generator that's at the police department right now, is that a police generator?
It's a city generator.
City? I mean, could that move? Because I don't think the library needs it. You guys need power. If we have a crazy, terrible storm, the police need power and you guys need power. I mean, in my thinking. So if they're gonna abandon that, we could pick that up and move it up there, put it in the back of your truck.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. There's $500,000.
Right, exactly.
Bingo.
Wow.
Let's go for supper.
Anyway, but no, I appreciate that because it's, I think we have to get to this step to now say, okay, roll up the sleeves.
Exactly.
What can we do without? What can we modify? And what do we absolutely need that might be an overrun issue? So, but no, thanks for putting this together.
Just one thing to add to that, that Mike did put together already kind of a priority list of, things that, that they really need versus the items that are kind of more wish list items. So we kind of already have that started. So we'll kind of start looking at, what ones we can start bringing off and where that puts us on the budget.
I just had a question on timeline. So you mentioned you'd come back with some information towards the end of September. So if they come back towards the end of September, that puts us out to seeing this as into early October. Is that timely enough for decisions to be made?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the bid it out probably early October. Bids would come back probably end of October, I would assume.
Yeah.
And then all of those numbers would come back to Common Council in November. So they don't anticipate starting the project probably till like January anyways. So it does give some wiggle room
Okay.
there, some allowances. But that's, good question. And I'm sure based on conversation, our number of conversations, I mean, there's a little bit of flexibility there with bidding out. There's no way that we're not gonna force this out if everybody's not on board with it at the council level, right? So,
Right.
Yeah, just another quick thing to add to that is, if it's comes down to it and we're still trying to figure out some certain things in one area, we can kind of split this up into different bid packages. And of course, we would be bringing that, to you guys in the council to make sure that the city is comfortable with going at that approach. But those were some initial discussions that we had, if potentially we needed to, we could look at, splitting up some of these into separate packages.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments about flexible options like that.
Absolutely.
That's helpful. If not, any other questions tonight? Well, thank you for your presentation. Thanks for being here tonight,
thank you.
Mr.
Thanks,
Kester. Appreciate it. Okay, so that was under old business, the update. Anything else you wanted to add, Mike, about Public Works Facility? Great.
I'm good.
Okay, we had one more item under new business, which was to review and discuss some of the prior attempts to get funding or seeking grants to help us with our reconstruction and improvement of the Higgins Street Bridge. So we're going to talk about some of that and whether we recommend moving forward or not. Would you like to discuss that, Erin?
I think,
Mike?
well,
Mike,
or you want me to? Well, I know you
need
have
a
been
break.
talking. What? I didn't, yes. I guess, so I don't have a lot of background, I guess, on how the whole project started or where it came from. I do know that the Hagan Street Bridge is more so owned and it is the responsibility of WISDOT. But my understanding was that the city wanted to push forward because of, you know, some traffic delays, so adding a lane to it and also improving the pedestrian facilities. So I know with that, we have hired someone to get to 60% design and kind of in the background, you know, have been applying for grants for the actual construction of it. And
Thank you. Thanks for
so
being here.
we wanted to provide an update. So it sounds like in, 2022, then, we included 325,000 in the CIP to hire Strand to do the plans and specifications, complete an environmental review and assist with grant writing. So they have helped, because these are pretty big federal grants that take a lot of effort. They're very large grants that would be, you know, near impossible to do in-house. So we've done the 2022 RAISE, the 2022 Bridge Improvement Program, which they call BIP, 2022 Reconnecting Communities Program, and then 2023 and 2024 we tried for the RAISE again, and then also the Bridge Improvement Program in 2024. And then also applied for the multimodal local supplement, which I'm guessing is more of a state funded.
It was a state funded, yeah, it was like $1 million
program.
grant. Yeah.
The other ones are all federal funded programs. And I know the programs, when you kind of look at the projects that get awarded, they are, you know, I would say heavily focused on multimodal transportation, so like transit, Justice 40 they call it, so basically either kind of low income or diverse neighborhood populations, and we don't really have that, I guess, here in Hudson, so we don't get really any scores for that type. And so, you know, I would be surprised if we continue to go for these specific programs if we actually got one. They do try to spread it out, like the RAISE does try to give one per state. And the ones in Wisconsin have been like Milwaukee, you know, it's kind of hard to compete with some of the other communities and their needs too. So we have spent $230,000 to date of that approved $325,000 with Strand to kind of do all the design. And right now we are only up to 60% design. So we don't have like 100% design yet. And so we thought it'd be a good time to bring up how we want to move forward.
Thank you for that summary. I appreciate it. I think Councilmember Brooks, Sarah Brooke, we were on the council at the time that the design, you know, was selected. It was just before Mike Kennedy and I were elected, but certainly witnessing the discussion, there was a lot of input from residents, a lot of concern certainly for bike and pedestrian safety, as well as a busy intersection. And if I recall, there were several design ideas put forward. Again, this was a prior city engineer that was part of the design, and maybe Strand helped develop those designs, because if I'm not mistaken, the council ended up voting.
Yes, they did.
We had public input, various meetings in the community, and the council voted. What's your recollection of it?
Well, and I think we did that because that was a requirement of the grant, right? Like
Correct.
they had
Sure.
to have a design, so.
Yes.
That's how I remember this all starting.
Good point. Yes, so a design had to be chosen because we had to get at least started on
Right.
the work
Right.
before we would even be considered. I guess it's a way of a community showing that they're serious.
Right.
Right.
About to spend some money, you're serious about this project,
Yeah.
so. I have had people ask me in Hudson community, when's that bridge gonna, when's that gonna be done? Because they heard the discussion, took part in the input sessions and so on, and thought that it was a go. So it's disappointing, but it is quite expensive. Do you have thoughts on it, Mike?
Yeah, thanks. Out of that, 230,000 that we spent with them, how much of that is the actual application and grant, and how much of that was the design?
So a general rule of thumb is it costs approximately $8,000 to $10,000 of Strand's staff time to put together the grant applications. So we've applied for six times. So between $50,000 and $60,000 is a good rough estimate. The rest of it was all of the design specs and environmental review.
And just so I understand so we figured out this is the bridge design we want,
Yep.
60% worth.
Yep.
And then we just keep kind of saying, hey, don't forget about this design over here. And then for example, the Rays one, the 2022, 2023, 2024, it's that same design. And I don't know if, I mean, I know this is a lot more paperwork and stuff than I could put together, obviously, but, at some point, is that something we just keep throwing it in there? But I hate to use the term, but cut and paste what we did in 2024, or do we have to be drastically different? Just watching the Olympics, I wonder if we need more sparkle or whatever. Like, is there a reason they said, no, let's try again?
Our sparkler's fizzling out. That's the problem we're running into.
Yeah.
So after each one of these grant applications, we have a debriefing with a federal grant person, and they basically kind of cover your application. Where were you strong? Where were you weak? We've improved our weak areas pretty much to the best. I mean, we've tried to squeeze because it's on a scoring basis. You get a score for every criteria, right? And the higher score, but you got to have substantial evidence for those. You can't just say, "Oh yeah, it's on."
Right, yeah.
They want to have like numbers and data and left turns, right turns, pedestrian conflict. They want it all. And these applications are 200 to 250 pages long.
Right.
So
And they probably
there's-
want current numbers.
they want current numbers,
Right.
right?
And there's some data that we're just probably never going to be able to check the boxes on those things that we.
Aaron would maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I think with some of them, like the number of pedestrians, but they have like calculations that they do to like estimate some of that stuff. And yeah, I would say we've tried improving every year based on the feedback from the debrief. And then I feel like it's also frustrating, like the bridge improvement program, or maybe it was the Rays. They said, here's the things you need to work on. We improved it or tried to, and then the score didn't increase at all, or it even maybe went down.
Right.
It's just like, it is difficult. And then the answer I feel like I've never gotten is you try to get this score to move on to the next step
Right.
of the process, and then how are the projects selected? And that's where it's a little more political, I feel like, and there's only so much we can do.
Right.
Like from what I've seen, and it's like, once you get to this next level of project selection, who's actually making the selections? I'm not saying any, like, I just feel like.
I hear you.
But I follow that too. So now that we have the design, using your rough numbers, and a grant pops up on your screen, so about another $8,000 we spend to try to do that.
Yeah.
Again,
Right.
we've already swallowed the big chunk, and that's the 60% design. So we're not really saying, should we spend $325,000?
No.
Most of that's already spent. Now it's going to be kind of doling out it in $10,000 bills, basically.
It does take staff time, though.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
our internal staff. What do we estimate? I mean, costs change, so I know it's totally ballpark, but what do you think it would cost to do the whole bridge?
Oh, the reconstruction?
Yes.
It was around 11 million.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Very high.
Yep.
Big ticket
When we
item.
first started it, I think it was around 7 to 8
or something,
What's
yeah,
that?
so, yep.
back in 2022.
Cost of everything. But it's very expensive. I certainly don't want residents of Hudson to think that, we're going to give up on something that they have expressed concern about and, want to be able to cross the freeway, let their kids go play with friends, send somebody to the post office, whatever it might be, on a bicycle. We would like that safe access to all of our streets, but it is so costly. But the other part that concerns me, and I do wonder if that's affecting our applications, is it's not our bridge. WISDOT has said they think it's fine structurally, I guess.
Right.
I don't know what the
I was
actual.
going to ask what the rating was, because I know I asked it one time. I feel like it was like in the 80%
Low
or
80s,
something.
low
Yeah.
80s.
And so it doesn't get considered a risk for quite a while. I mean,
In terms of like structural.
yes,
Yes.
Structural
yes,
rating.
yeah.
Yep.
Not traffic flow,
Right,
bikes, all of
right,
that,
like-
absolutely, but, and so they're sort of, have it on the side burner. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's having an impact, if people who are administering these grants say to the lead people, at Wisconsin DOT, what do you think about these different projects? You know, if that's affecting us, like you said, there must be some subjectivity behind the scenes. And, you know, people look at Hudson and they look at our part of the state, St. Croix County, and we score high in terms of affluence, or the appearance of affluence anyway, for dollars and numbers and socioeconomic. So we, like you said, we aren't scoring high on some of the variables that they're looking for to distribute the money. So I value the input, because I'm happy that we're having this discussion, and it's good we can bring it to council as well, because I do wonder if we're, knocking on a door that's not going to open. And it's partly because it's such a big project. It is not technically our bridge. I have a little concern about the city of Hudson. Obviously, WISDOT would supervise it and be involved in various ways, but that could be challenging. Is it our bridge now versus theirs in the future?
Right.
It's a little complicated, I think. But anyway,
To the point,
other thoughts?
to what I think I heard your point being, Mike, is that we have roughly still 90,000 in this budget, and if it's roughly $8,000 to $10,000 to try another grant, since that money's there, what would the harm be in trying again? But are there different grant options? I know, so
Yeah,
here
good question.
there's 3 different grants, it looks like, that you've tried here?
Yep.
Are there any other ones that we haven't tried?
I guess I would have to do a little more research on specific for bridges, because the ones I know so far, like the, or STP urban and things like that, I don't think they would.
We can ask our consultant Strand, just see if they are aware
Yeah,
of
or
any.
we can ask the
Is that
consultant.
expensive to ask them to do
No,
that?
no, they won't charge us for that. That's a good question, though.
That's a $5,000 fee.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would assume they would point us in that direction. That's part of
Yeah.
their job when we hire them.
Exactly, yep.
So I would assume that they would.
I know I guess the question would be, how much are we willing to pay versus wanting out of a grant? So these grants, I think they're like more 80-20. I know, like the STP Urban, I did try for Carmichael, which was like $13 million, and that was kind of a stretch, but it is a really good project. So some of the local or the state ones, they just don't go that high. So it's like, if we're willing to put in 50%, maybe that gives us a better chance too. So it's like, what are we willing to spend on it locally?
Well, on that one specific bridge, and I don't know when it was, a year ago, between a year or 2 ago, just magically overnight, in between the median, they probably did it when they were redoing the hill there, but there's galvanized sheet metal, corrugated things that are bolted together with some Menards concrete poured down.
Oh, on the buttresses.
Yeah.
You're saying on below.
Below. on
Right,
I-94.
like you can see from
If I
94.
rented a house from someone, I saw that like on my staircase, where I'd say, "Are we safe to go in here?" Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I know you guys have 8 million things going on. I'm not trying to make more work, but I'd love to hear an answer of, yeah, that's what we do on these older bridges. We just run up to Fleet Farm and get some steel and.
Right.
I mean, if you were looking out the window and thought that looks like a safe bridge, you look at that and you think, I don't know. So obviously the state is the one that's grading it. Mm-hmm. So they're putting their, it's not the city of Hudson saying we love that bridge and we think it's great. But it'd be interesting to say at what point did someone with the state say we have to address 2 out of 3 of those buttresses. Mm-hmm. And here's our solution, and that will get us another 10 years. Or I'd love to kind of know a backstory on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if they keep doing that for 20 years and keep saying to you guys, hey, we can come up with, even if you do a 50 one, we'd still have to come up with 6 million.
Right, yeah.
Right. I know.
At some point, they can't just keep patching that thing and
Right.
say, we're not going to do anything more than what you see there. So anyway.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
along those lines, I'd be curious when that last rating on the bridge was. Like,
Yeah.
That's good information to get.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can definitely get more information and we can, yeah.
So I
So
see
we're-
what the recommended action is. Are you wanting a motion on this and some?
I mean, if you want to bring it to full council for just a general discussion, so everybody's on the same page with this, or if you feel comfortable just kind of moving along as we have and just continue to apply for grants, I'm amenable to that as well. So I guess I'll leave it in your court what you'd like to do.
Anyone have a comment?
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where, Aaron and I were, it's like, almost kind of like you're hitting your head against the wall. It's like, do we continue to do this? And,
Right.
and we're fine doing it. I have no problem doing that. It's just, but there's a little bit of money left in that account. We want to continue to use it. And like I said, obviously the public has expressed their concerns up there, and to pull out from it now, probably wouldn't make sense. So,
Could I ask a question about the, whatever background data we've had to gather for the grant? Is that only good for a certain number of years and then you have to, or are you resubmitting your traffic counts and everything every year?
I'm not sure exactly if they updated.
those stay pretty consistent from grant to grant.
Or
'cause
they can
haven't
just
come out-
apply a certain factor
Yeah.
maybe.
Right. It's like every year. it's
I
like a
haven't
one-
dove into those details with the grant.
We wouldn't
That's-
necessarily be in a year from now suddenly having to redo all of our studies and so on.
They
Yeah.
haven't come out and done any recounts for the
No,
last previous.
no,
They just
I would say the
resubmitted it.
traffic stuff is, yeah, I don't know if the, unless the grant criteria says, X, you have to have data within the X number of years. I don't know that it says that, so.
Sure.
No.
Well, I think, we're going to be working on a CIP this fall, and there's various issues that are on people's minds but might be needed going forward. I don't think it hurts to have this discussion so that other council members can chime in. The public knows we're still thinking and working on that. I don't think it necessarily means we're going to take a vote to stop doing it. We could bring it forward just for discussion, I guess. I don't know, parliamentary wise. We could wait and see if we get more information. If Deb or, Mike or Aaron have anything further to add to it. What are your comments today?
This would maybe help me understand what I would think a good next step. Can you kind of explain the process? Like, there's not a pending grant hanging out there right now, is there?
Correct. No.
Correct, yep, now they've all
Okay.
closed out.
And we have earmarked, we have additional monies for this type of thing. So that's kind of sitting in Mike's office on his shelf. I mean, could we kind of limp along and so the process would be, does this grant writing company notify us and say, hey, we think there'd be a great grant out there for you. I'll send you a bill for $8,000. We'll do it and we'll see how lucky we get. And at that point, do we then say, let's talk about, should we pursue it or not? Like right now, there's really not anything to aggressively go after. So,
Right. So based
I don't know if that
on,
helps or not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I mean, based on the grant criteria, if there's some things that we can do in-house, we obviously do that just to save money. Some of the more complicated data-driven grants, that's when we have to bring in Strand to help with that,
Right.
that application process, just because they have people that specialize in those
Right.
areas. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of how, and as far as like letting us know what grants, I mean, they know that we want this project, right? They want us to have this project because then.
right.
Helps them.
So I mean, they're looking out on our behalf. Obviously, we can reach out to them, see if there's anything else, and not to get really political here, but a lot of this depends upon who's in office too at the federal side, right? I mean, monies are available in certain areas and are not, so that all factors into it as well in the future. So, but
Right, and I'm looking at that 90,000 and thinking, oh, that's a couple of alleys, or we have some bike and pedestrian trails that really need maintenance, so I don't know how we'd reallocate, obviously we have to follow the rules, but if we have obtained it through CIP, do we have to spend it in a certain time frame? Or
Generally, yes.
Finance director
Yep.
to answer
Yeah,
that.
we need the finance director to, I'm not gonna outstep my bounds on that one.
Right, yeah, at any rate.
Yes.
I mean, again,
Typically,
it's real
yes.
money. It is real money, and I sense the frustration. I rarely move from the floor because I lead the meeting, but I'm going to recommend that we forward the discussion to the council so we can get full input, and it'll also bring more awareness to the community that we have been working hard at this. So I just think it could be a fruitful discussion. So I'm moving that we at least bring it forward as an update, Public Works update, engineering update to the Common Council when it seems to suit the agenda. So looking for a second.
A second.
Not that I'm twisting your arm or anything. It's been moved and seconded that we would move this discussion just for the Common Council to also have input and awareness. All in favor?
Can I have discussion real
Yes, ma'am.
quick? I'm sorry,
Discussion,
before we
sorry.
vote. In addition, I am comfortable with that, but things I would like to know or like to see in the issue sheet when that is there. I'd like to know about, are there grant options? What's the bridge rating, and when is its next
Great.
time to be
Some more of that
reviewed?
information, so it
that we
might be
can be fruitful
in a couple
conversation.
meetings. We don't have to expect it
Right.
necessarily next
Absolutely.
week, but when staff is ready, a little more update, that'd be helpful. And again, I do think it's just helpful for the other council members to be able to weigh in, and for the public to know that we're still working on this project, we're discussing it, the difficulty of it. So I appreciate that. So any other discussion, comments?
No, just to add to that, this is different than just a chunk of road. This is public safety, if you will. This is public works. This is riding bikes. This is, it encompasses a lot more than just should we replace some asphalt. So, yeah, I think, and I agree with what Sarah's requesting. That would be helpful so we can.
Let's have more details, right, because the council also needs to bear in mind, if we are awarded one of these grants, like, surprise, surprise, so exciting,
Come up with
we will
millions.
need to pony up some money.
Yep.
And so we'll need to be prepared to find, make CIP bonding arrangements for that, so, we need that commitment. It definitely had lots of discussion several years ago, and it's fair enough. I agree with your comments about public safety and how important that is. We definitely, as the public, spoke out on that. So at that point, we'll ask for a vote that we're moving the discussion to council with a little more background information. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, and that's passed. Okay, so then that completes new business, old business, and we're going to have a few project updates tonight.
Yes, I can take this one. So the first one is Vine Street, which I'm sure I have been getting a lot of questions, due just even from internal people, my husband, etc. So they have paved the wear course, and they are doing striping today, and overnight they're gonna do the crosswalk striping, and I know it's past like our 7 p.m. normal operating hours, but I figure it's not really a noisy operation, and it's kind of the best time to do it since there still is traffic, like going to the Y and things, so it'd be hard to do the crosswalk striping with all that going on. So that'll be finished up. Excel is finishing a few pole relocations, so to have it closed for them, they'll hopefully be done tomorrow. They said 2 days, so that should be today and tomorrow. And then there's just a few signage things that need to be completed, like putting in the pedestrian flasher system at Diamond and the median, and a few other things that they need to kind of switch out. And so, long story short, it should be open by Friday. Maybe earlier, but no promises.
Yeah.
Well, that's well before the school year.
Right,
Right,
yeah,
that-
exactly.
That was their target, so
Yep,
that's great.
yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So then down to Green Street, so that one's coming along nicely as well. They do have the concrete curb and gutter and most of the concrete driveways poured as of today. They're looking to do the grading of the binder, so it's kind of just the first lift of asphalt, maybe this Thursday, Friday even, and then it'll just be restoration of the yards, final wear course. We don't have an exact date for that, but the contractor today said he'd be surprised if it wasn't done by Labor Day. So that would be Green Street. And then the sidewalk and alleys replacement project, so that is kind of out for bid right now. We'll have the bid opening this Thursday. Hopefully, if we get, you know, good bids and we get bids, which we should, from what I've kind of been hearing, I'll try to put that on the Monday agenda for approval, and then we would just need to see what the contractor proposes for a schedule. But essentially, in our contract, we have that they need to start by September 6th, and then they have till like October 25th to complete it. So essentially 6 weeks to do it. That would include 2 alleys and the downtown sidewalk repairs. And then just to note, based on the discussion we had for the approval of the plans at the last council meeting, I did add some more sidewalk replacement areas in the downtown. I basically walked around again and said, okay, there's a few more spots we could add, and so I've added that to the project. The other thing, which I don't need to get it approved here, but I am gonna look at trying to do a 5 a.m. start time. So typically our working hours in our contract is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I would look to get it approved by council to do 5 a.m. for the downtown sidewalk. And that's just for, you know, some of the areas, they'll be pouring right in front of like doorways or just for business access. If they can get in there earlier, it could actually like be opened up within a few hours. So I thought that would just be useful, from business access perspective, you know, and I don't.
That's a good idea.
We'll see if that, I guess, if there's big concerns from that, from a noise perspective, from the council, I'm not sure, but I would kind of put that as a secondary approval, like on Monday. And then 11th Street reconstruction, so that would be a 2025 project, and we do have the 100% plans are complete and submitted to WISDOT, so that's a consultant doing those design plans. And basically at this point, the city has kind of a hands-off to the project, so WISDOT kind of takes it through bidding, which they're thinking right now they would bid it out in January. And then the project, the contract, or our sub-consultant for the design, MSA, estimated about 90-day construction timeline. So, you know, we don't know what that exact schedule would be, but it would take approximately 90 days to complete. And then MSA, they are also working on the assessment report, so they'll follow up with me at the end of this month. And we'll kind of go from there to put together a schedule for the public hearing for the assessments and kind of get those worked out as well here in the next couple of months. So that'll be nice to have that a little bit earlier than we have for some of the other projects. I was thinking we don't need an open house, and we haven't been doing open houses for the last few projects for just the assessments. So right now I was thinking I put out the layout of the 100% design online, send out letters saying, hey, you know, we took your input at the last open house, here's kind of the final design. We'll follow up with more information on assessments, and I wouldn't plan to have another open house. Maybe towards construction, like in 2025, if we want to have an open house once we actually know the contractor and the schedule and any phasing or anything like that. We could, if we feel like it needs more than, you know, just, we can also give that with a letter. So, if everyone feels like that's okay, that's kind of how I'm thinking of proceeding with that one.
I think it's helpful that they know the design is done.
Yeah,
I have had
yeah.
a couple of residents ask me, well, you know, how, because they are on the west side where the
Trail's going.
trail will be,
Yep.
and
Yep.
how will that affect my property? And,
Yep.
you know, some of them did attend the last open house and have a general idea, but some might not, so that is
Yep.
helpful, and then, of course, they can contact you. with
Yes,
questions.
of course, yeah.
So,
Yep,
that'd
I
be
can
great.
meet
So you
with
might
people.
send that out
Yeah, yeah.
this fall.
Yes, yeah, I'll send out a letter.
Certainly, assessment's an issue, of
Yeah.
course, but what's the design and how's it gonna impact my property?
Yes.
Is a current question too.
Yes.
Thank
Could you just spotlight, like, what's the timeline with assessment? Like, what's the typical notice, and when are the final numbers actually available for the residents?
Oh, well, Final or preliminary final?
Okay, let's say preliminary,
Well,
generally speaking.
I guess since I've been with the city, I've kind of had to play catch up with them. So I don't know what the typical timeline should be. I would say you want to get out before it goes out to bid, and have your preliminary numbers, and you really should be able, it kind of just depends on when you get the design done. So usually I would wait till the engineer's report for the assessment process has to have preliminary plans and specifications in it. So that means you probably want to get to like at least 90%, if not the plans are done. So like for the alley project, well, we just finished the plans and now construction might happen in less than a month, you know, and so I'm trying to fit in the assessments before that. So I feel like it's kind of a balance of like the design versus wanting to get out early with letting people know. And that just, you know, it's not like, oh, in January, all the assessments. It's just kind of each project is unique and the timeline unique.
I've received some feedback that sometimes the assessment actually comes after this project's gotten started, and so I just was wondering if there was a way, just because those are some big hits for some folks, that we can get that out there a little bit sooner. I'm not sure, and I understand it's very fluid and no two projects alike, but it'd be really nice if we kind of had some, so residents can know what to expect.
Yep, a little sooner. Yep, I get it. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good input. Any other comments on that? Could we have a update on the steps, the City Hall stairs?
Oh, yeah. So obviously, if you've driven by City Hall, you see the concrete steps and the ramp have been completed. So we're at the point in the process where the railing is getting manufactured. So the company that is manufacturing the railing wanted to wait just until the concrete was in place so that the measurements are correct, so they're not having to redo them.
Sure.
So they're currently being manufactured, and then they'll be powder coated, installed. Needless to say, I am guaranteed that they're going to be open before the big election this fall. So hopefully within the next month we get it completed. I know that the guys, we had electricians here this morning. They were doing some of the electrical work for the 2 light poles that are going out in front of the stairwell. So they're doing that. There's a little bit of lead time on the light poles themselves. So I think that's going to be towards the end of November, if I recall. So might have to come up with some alternative solutions there for in the meantime, but that's kind of
The lighting
The
might
lighting,
not
yes,
be
the lighting,
available.
yep.
Are they going to be like a historic
Yep,
style?
yep, it's going to be this kind of the same kind of light pole that we had prior.
Yeah, that'd be
Same
great.
bases that we've done in the downtown district.
Sure.
Yeah.
That'll look nice.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would, just wondering, are you at the part where communication and items for future agendas? I'm sorry.
Yes. I think we're probably, any other updates? Yes, please. Do you have a communication?
Well, I was wondering if there was any update on the status of the garbage. RFP?
I had it written down right here. I said Sarah's going to bring that up.
Got her pegged.
So RFPs are due on the 29th.
Okay,
So we'll be discussing those at our September meeting.
okay. And I have a specific road in downtown Hudson where I've gotten some resident complaints about that, but I know we're going to be on the CIP. The downtown roads are really, really rough. And I know that we've done a lot and have made as many efforts as we can. But I do think the approach of maybe we're waiting for a pipe to burst or something, I'm not sure that that's the best system. So I really want to make sure that that's a priority as we're moving forward. So that's for the future. And I'll talk to you about the street that I've gotten a lot of complaints from residents.
So you're thinking about, for part of the CIP that we would discuss this fall?
Well, I'm thinking, we had talked about if the amount of money that we're setting aside on our roads, which is, I think, 2.5 million this next year? We were at 2 million last year. So next year we're at 2.5. If we're feeling like that is not enough, then I thought there had been some talk that maybe we were going to need to get more aggressive. on funding sources.
And it would be CIP funding, yes, okay, thank you. I think it's good to have all those discussions, because, right, we're gonna make those decisions this fall, so there's, projects that need to be done, and in what order, and how can we stage them, and what's the smartest.
Right.
So, we'll look forward to, and we're gonna talk about the waste hauling soon, and the others we'll keep working on,
Yep.
so.
That's exciting.
Yep.
Very good. Any other comments or anything for the future? Okay, thank
Would
you.
you adjourn?
Second?
Okay, motion and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.